Thank you. Thanks, Steve, and Mix TV for putting this event on, and Life Care for hosting it. When I think of this year's team, I guess the word that comes to mind would be unproven. You know, we've got a lot of guys that'll be playing this year that they've got a lot to prove on Friday night, and they don't have a lot of experience. So I'll start with the returning starters. Offensively, we have Chris Myers, who's a junior offensive lineman. We only have one coming back from last year's team. Was voted as a team captain. Defensively, we have three returning starters, so a total of obviously four. Zane McIntosh, who's just going to be a sophomore. We've moved him from defensive line last year to middle linebacker. Probably will move him around quite a bit, honestly, just where we can put him in the kind of position to make some plays and be successful on defense for us. Wiley Suskowicz is another returning starter who's only going to be a junior. He actually didn't start last year until about the fourth or fifth game of the year, and ended up being our leading tackler with over 120 tackles, which says a lot with who he was surrounded with last year and the talent around him. Then we got Mason Gorey, who I brought with me today. He's going to be a four-year starter at corner for us. He's also going to start on offense this year. He was voted as a team captain. He's going to have to do a lot for us, offense, defense, special teams wise. Probably won't come off the field a whole lot, but been a four-year starter at corner. Also, Jacob Gentry, another guy I brought with me. Jacob will start at safety for us. He's a senior, also voted as a team captain. He kind of epitomizes what I believe Bradley football is about. A guy that's worked really hard for 4 years, not always the biggest, fastest, strongest, but plays with relentless effort. He's got relatives that played at Bradley, so Bradley football means a lot to him. But just the kind of guy that shows up every day, give everything he got, and like I said before, plays with a relentless effort. I know everybody, when you talk about football, everybody wants to know who the quarterback is. So our starting quarterback this year will be Tyler Cook. He'll be a junior. His future is probably in baseball as a pitcher. He'll probably end up being a pitcher in college. Very strong arm, athletic enough. Not a little bit different than what obviously Caleb was last year. Not quite as fast, but he's athletic enough to move around. So we'll run him a little bit. But his forte is going to be recognizing things at the line of scrimmage and distributing the ball to the right people, getting it in his playmakers' hands. Not turning the ball over. And then speaking of playmakers, on the edges, we have Tyrese Stovall, who's a 6'7" wide receiver, who'll end up being a Division I basketball player. With his height and speed, obviously gives us a little bit on the edge. Mason Gorey, like I mentioned earlier, he's got to make some big plays for us. And then Ollie Smith, who's another guy with really good athletic ability and has the ability to make some plays for us, that wasn't a starter last year but was kind of in the mix, at times. Offensive line, as we all know, to win football games, you got to be good on the line of scrimmage. We've got four new starters there this year. The good thing is they're all underclassmen, either sophomores or juniors, so we'll have them for the next couple of years. They've gotten better every day. They still got to get better before we play McMinn next week. Defensively, we'll continue to be very multiple, so we base out of a 3-4, but we'll move a lot of guys around. Quite honestly, we're not the biggest up front, so that's one reason we move a lot. But defensively, it boils down to being able to get off blocks, defeat blocks, and make tackles. So we're still in the process of trying to get better there. Open with McMinn, like I said, next Thursday night. Obviously, a rival that's been around a long time. I guess is this maybe the longest rivalry continuously played at this point. I think it's the longest rivalry. So, all off season, obviously, I'm sure they're talking about Bradley. We're talking about McMinn, so it ought to be an intense game Thursday night. We did move it to Thursday to try to get a bigger crowd with other local teams playing on Friday. But right now, I guess the biggest thing we're looking for as a team is looking for consistency. Anytime you open up the first game, everybody says your biggest improvements from your first to second. So we're just trying to get those kinks ironed out before the first game and not make too many mistakes. Obviously, as players and coaches, we're excited to get the season started. We're tired of practicing against each other and scrimmaging other teams, and we're excited for next Thursday night. So with that, I will open up for any questions. Yes.
When you were at Bradley playing, UGC playing, when did you make up your mind you wanted to be a coach?
I don't remember those days. Actually, that's a long time ago. As Steve pointed out, I'm one of the oldest in the room now. So Honestly, when I was playing, I never thought about it. When I got done in college, I went into sales for 3 or 4 years and realized that I missed just being part of the team. And obviously football meant a lot to me. I had a lot of mentors along the way that I played for that meant a lot to me in my life. So during those 3 or 4 years that I was away from football, I realized that I enjoyed it, or I loved it. And it wasn't just the football part. It was just, like I mentioned, being part of the team. And I know the head coach gets a lot of credit and a lot of criticism over time, but really it is just being part of it.
Coach?
Yes.
Losing Bo, or losing Boo, losing the talent you lost last year, how's the offense going to change a little bit with it's not maybe having as much dynamic as it did last year in options?
Oh, it's definitely changing without Boo. But, you know, that's part of high school football. We've got to adapt to what we have. Like I mentioned, I do feel like we have guys that can make plays. I think, honestly, our running back position is probably deep as it's ever been, but we're not going to replace Boo. I mean, we never will. You know, you don't get a player like that very often. So we're going to be a lot more multiple. You know, last year we were able to spread it out and kind of let Caleb make some decisions and keep people spread out and count the box. So we'll be very multiple. We will a lot of times be 12 personnel and then may shift to 10 personnel, 11 personnel, one back, 2 tight ends, those kind of things. So we have got to find a way to create some mismatches and create extra gaps for us to be successful on offense. And like I mentioned with Tyler earlier, he's got to make decisions based on what we're seeing up front and be able to make some checks and audibles to put us in a position to succeed. So long story short, yeah, we can't replace Boo, and we know that. We're not asking the guys to be Boo. They need to be themselves. That's our job as coaches, to try to put them in a situation to be successful. It starts with Landon Scott. He'll be a senior. And then we got Brayshawn Beard, who will be running the ball. Peyton Parker-Price. We had Kenyon Phelps move in, transferred into us from Alabama this year. Really strong kid that can be able to run the ball for us. So we've got 4 or 5 guys. Hope I'm not leaving anybody out. Am I missing anybody? 4 or 5 guys that we feel confident about. But once again, like I mentioned in the opening statement, is we got to prove it. Like, these guys are unproven. You know, in practice, sometimes we look really good. Other times we look really bad. So the consistency is the thing that we're trying to focus on right now. And we've got a lot of guys that, quite honestly, we've got to figure out as the season goes of who that man will be, you know, because in practice we don't touch each other a lot. I mean, you try to keep everybody healthy for the first game, so we don't know who's going to show up every Friday and be able to take that pounding at our level and compete on a consistent basis. So we have 4 or 5 guys that we feel like can do it, but whoever steps up as the season goes along, I can't honestly answer that question right now.